Please help me welcome our next speaker, Junior.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Junior. I'm an alcoholic. Yeah, grateful to be alive, grateful to be sober, grateful to be in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I want to thank Brandy for asking me to come out and share my experience, strength, and hope with you tonight. It's always an honor and a privilege. My sobriety date's October 14th, 1997. My sponsor's Barry Kay, and my home group is the Burbank group of Alcoholics Anonymous. For those three things, I'm grateful for my life and my sobriety. Without those three things, I wouldn't have life nor sobriety. My sobriety date gives me a sense of purpose, my sponsor gives me a sense of direction, and my home group gives me a sense of belonging. Therefore, I become a part of and not apart from. And I get to learn about those two great gifts that were handed down by Dr. Bob, which was love and service. I tell you, love is my God, service is my recovery. I want to welcome our new friends, Alcoholics Anonymous, and I also want to welcome our out-of-town guests. Somebody said they drink in New York City. I think they make salsa, too. I love that commercial. If you're new, I do want to welcome you. What I found in Alcoholics Anonymous is the language of the heart. Where the heart speaks, the heart listens. This is totally a heart-to-heart talk. And also, to me, the music is the laughter that we have in these rooms. If we can't laugh about it, we can't recover from it. And that's what I've learned in Alcoholics Anonymous. When I got here, things weren't that funny. But as I began to lighten up a little bit and apply Rule 62 before I even knew about the rule, which was don't take myself so damn serious, I was able to start to find this thing called recovery and get some healing from the pain and the agony that I put myself through under the influence of alcohol and all those other mind-altering substances that I like to use. I was thinking about a lot of things, when you get an opportunity to share a little bit, which this is a coffee commitment with a microphone to me. I'm a cookie guy on Monday night, and I do some literature on another night. I'm a treasurer on a different night, and I have a variety of service commitments in Alcoholics Anonymous, and they're all equally as important, and I take them with the same amount of seriousness, because what Alcoholics Anonymous has done for me, I can never pay back, and I thank God. I always want to have that attitude that, I'll never get right with AA, so I just got to keep, doing the deal. I got to trust God, clean house, and help other alcoholics. And, and I've learned that here in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous because by my very nature, I'm selfish and self-centered, and the only person I think about is myself. When I got here, you guys started helping me think about other people. The spiritual awakening for me in the 12th step was I started thinking more of you and less of me. And that's a big awakening for me. That's huge. And a lot of recovery has come as a result of that. I started getting loaded at a very early age. At 12, I had my first drunk, but I won't take you through that because we don't got a lot of time. But I like to talk about an experience I had when I was around 14 years old. This is when drinking was really fun. There was a lot of energy to it. I was really excited about it. Me and my friend on Friday nights, my father used to give me an allowance. I think I got like $10. And, I used to, I couldn't wait for Friday, get my $10. And what we used to do is we used to pimp beer in front of this one liquor store in our neighborhood. And, if you don't know what pimping beers is, it's where, you stand out there and wait till somebody old enough comes by and is willing enough to get you what you need. And we used to like to get Miller High Life in the long neck bottles, 12-pack. And our drinking spot was about 2 blocks away, and we had to run up an alley. And it was a kinder, gentler time. It was like 1980, and it only took about 10 minutes. I remember, we got somebody to do it, and we'd be running up the alley, and this was a scenario that I would experience many times during my youth. And I'd be running up the alley, and I'd start getting all exhilarated, man. I love to call it the drink before the drink. It's like I'm already getting buzzed because I'm already thinking about it, and it's really exciting. And and I'm thinking about, wow, what if we get caught? And, what are we going to do? And the cops. And, I don't want to get caught. My parents are going to be pissed. But there was some kind of excitement to that. I was getting off on it. And I get up there and we get to the where we're going to go, and do our thing. And I remember just can't wait to tear the top of the box open. And I pull out that first long neck bottle, and I remember cracking the top and just watching that smoke come out of it because, it's really cold, especially in the wintertime. You get a really good, little smoke ring coming out of it. And I would take a pull off that first beer, and I take a really good drink because, I've been excited, and I've been, and I'm ready now. And I take a really hard pull off of that Miller High Life. And any of you old Miller High Life drinkers, you know what I'm talking about. I bring the bottle down, and I look through the bottle, and you could see the back of the label, and it said, the champagne of beers. And I thought, whoa, dude, you got class, And then I remember, at that time, it seemed like everybody smoked weed, and my friend would break out some weed, and I was afraid because my mother told me about drugs, and I didn't want to do drugs, because I listened to my mother. But my fear of what he would think of me if I didn't smoke that outweighed my fear of my mother and what she was telling me, and that's a dilemma. when you're a youthful little drinker like I was, an alcoholic in training, and I didn't know I was alcoholic, I didn't know I had a predisposition, and I didn't know I had the disease. I just know I really liked drinking. And, and we'd smoke this, and it was like that wasn't even, I can't even brag about it. It was like Mexican dirt weed. I think oregano might have had a bigger punch than this stuff. But we're young and we're excited. And it doesn't matter, the exhilaration will take you to the point where you need to be. And I always like to share this story because something had happened to me one of those times up there. And I remember bringing the bottle down, and it's getting into my system. And if you're new here in Alcoholics Anonymous, and if you can identify with exactly what I'm going to tell you about, don't leave your home. And what happened to me was, it felt so good that I thought to myself, I want to do this the rest of my life. And if you've ever had that thought, that's an abnormal reaction to alcohol. It filled the void that I had inside of me. I was always a worrier. I was very compulsive about worrying as a child. And my mother said, Junior, you got to stop worrying. You're going to get gray hair. And I said, no, I'm not. Well, she was right. And I used to walk around the elementary school campus, and I can vividly remember feeling like a square peg in a round hole and like I didn't fit in. And that was my alcoholism. And it was chewing me up. And when I got alcohol and I got that sensation and that feeling and that adrenaline rush that I got from alcohol, there was nothing equal. There was absolutely, I couldn't hit a home run, get an A, not that I ever did any of those things, but I'm sure if I ever did them, they wouldn't have met the criteria that alcohol meant in my life. And because alcohol came into my life at such a young age, I didn't do a lot of things. I did go in the military. I jumped out of airplanes. I'll tell you one more drinking story, and I'll jump into what happened. Because like I said, 30 minutes is, not really that much time to nail it all down. But this was a really important drinking story. This was when I was back at Fort Bragg, and I remember our section had a party at my section chief's house. And they brought mezcal. And I'm a young alcoholic in training, and this is back in North Carolina, 84, drinking age was 19. And I was as of drinking age. And we're at my section chief's house, and they had a big bottle of mezcal. And I'm like, what's that? And he goes, man, that's mezcal. And I go, man, that sounds good. That just like, just the name of it just like got me all going, It doesn't take much to get me going, I'll tell you. And he said, there's a worm in there. I go, oh, that's disgusting. He goes, no, dude, if you get that worm, you're going to hallucinate. And I thought, by God, I got to get that worm. And when you're a young alcoholic in training, there's only, I believe, in my heart of hearts, an active alcoholic can only learn from another active alcoholic. And this guy, he says, here's what you do, man. He says, take that bottle, tilt it, hold it on your tongue, and hold your tongue tight. Don't let it seep in your mouth or it won't work. He says, once you feel something hit your tongue, take a big swallow. So, I'm there, and I'm already half toasted, and it's seeping through anyways. I'm just like trying, man. But I had to get the worm, and I was bound and determined. And a lot of it's going in my mouth. I'm sure half of it's coming out of my mouth. Something hit my tongue, and I took a swallow. Now, that was at 9 o'clock Saturday night. 8 o'clock the next morning in the barracks, I'm butt naked in my room, and I don't know how I got there. And I can't remember anything else, and I guess you can't write about something you can't remember. So I can't tell you what really happened, man, and I can't tell you why I was naked, but, whatever, I remember Cubby, before he passed away, listen to him tell a story. He told a story of Noah, and, I'm no, biblical giant, so I'm just going to tell you how he said it. Once the ark took, I guess, dry dock, Noah goes out and, starts with the grapes, and he got drunk, and then he got naked, and I thought, wow, we've been getting drunk and naked for a long time. It's just, alcoholics are like that, And that's the best I got, and I did a lot of things in between. I was pitiful, incomprehensible demoralization would eventually creep into my life. It would seem like in the beginning it was a lot of fun, then it was fun with problems, then it was just a lot of problems, and I still couldn't stop. I could not stop. I started at the age of 12. I got to Alcoholics Anonymous when I was 32 years old. And I went through a living hell. And I put everybody around me through a living hell, and it didn't start out that way. It never seems to do it that way. I guess if I had that first drink and the nightmare started right then and there, maybe I would have stopped. Maybe I'd been young enough, strong enough, I might have had enough in me, but it was just slow and subtle. Like Norm Alpe says, the wheels of alcoholism grinds fine and it grinds slow. And it grind really slow for me, and I had a lot of highs and a lot of lows. And what happened was I started to do things that were just absolutely pitiful. One of the things that came, I don't know about you, I didn't come to AA and like all of a sudden get physically sober and feel great. I got physically sober and it got really spooky. And it got really weird, and I started to feel a lot of pain. And I started feeling, and I started to agonize over the things that I had done. And the visions of the people that I had harmed got really vivid, and the noise in my head got really loud. You know, and I thought that would never go away. And I thought I'd be haunted and terrorized by the actions of my past. And I'm here to say, man, as a direct result of the 12 steps in the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, it is not that way today. I've been able to make amends and restitutions for the harms that I created. I didn't know there's a freedom there. I didn't know the fact that I told someone my most deepest, darkest secret that I was going to take to the grave was going to free me up inside. And what happens is, the things that I'm thinking about, and I'm not proud of any of these things, but I need to share them. You know, I verbally and physically abused my wife while she was pregnant because she took my keys and I was loaded to the gills. You know, I hit her not once but 5 times, dead center in the face. You know, and today, you know, that little girl is just going to be 9 years old next month, and thank God she's healthy. You know, and nothing, a lot happened that night, but, you know, she wasn't harmed by that. You know, I think about my father being loaded at his funeral. You know, I started thinking about, you know, the loss of jobs and respect and, you know, and being so ashamed. And I had such a feeling inside. I felt so guilty. And it's always because you are. You know, and I was guilty of a lot of things. But I could not admit it. Denial is powerful. But denial is not a lie. It's self-deception. It's like this veil that I put in front of me, and it blocks me from any kind of honesty about who I really am. That's denial. It's not like, you know, I can't come up to you and say, oh, I'm in denial today. That's a bunch of crap, because if I'm aware of it, I can't be in denial. You know, and I was in such denial. And man, when the awakening happened, or the first the awakening happened as I took the steps, but I had a lot of experiences along the way. And I believe the awakening and the experiences are 2 different creatures. So please don't confuse your spiritual experience as like you got it. The awakening is something that has to happen through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, but a lot of good spiritual experiences can happen in between. When I was sitting at a meeting, I didn't understand a lot of things. I'm no intellectual giant. I never read a book in my life, and the first book I ever read was a big book, Alcoholics Anonymous. And I keep reading it to this day, and I've read a lot of books in between. I didn't know I could read. I'm not a great reader, but I can actually read. I'm not as stupid as I thought. And I can actually learn things, and I can actually do stuff. I really beat myself. My self-esteem was very low by the time I got to you, and I did it to myself. You know, I absolutely put myself down from the inside. I took the beating from within, and I was administering the pain. You know, and it's been through this fellowship and the healing process that happens in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous that I've been able to deal with a lot of things, and I'm dealing with stuff today. But what finally happened to me is I got very suicidal. I have 2 suicide attempts. I won't take you to the first because that one's kind of long, but it was really bad. But the second one was even worse. I weighed 270 pounds at the time that I had done this, so you can kind of get a visual. I'm not that weight today. I got to Alcoholics Anonymous 130 pounds wringing wet. What I did was I drank a drain opener. And unbeknownst to me, it was sulfuric acid. And I didn't take 1 drink, but I took 2, and I took 2 heavy swallows of this stuff. The next thing you know, I felt a little funny, and then I had my moment of clarity. And that was April 22nd, 1996. Man, and I called the hospital. And that moment of clarity was, you know what, this isn't it either. You know, I've been looking for the escape, because I don't know about the thought of not getting loaded, what it means to you. But what it means to me is that, man, I get absolutely frightened inside. I cannot imagine life without alcohol. And at the end, I couldn't imagine life with alcohol. The big book talks about that in the Vision for You. That is a true dilemma for a real alcoholic. And I believe a real alcoholic today, my definition a little different than the big book, is a man that won't give up a life of failure without a fight. You know, and I'm still holding on to this life of failure because I know no different. You know, I know no different. I don't have a roadmap. I don't have a reference point. I have to have faith, and I lack faith very much. Everything about Alcoholics Anonymous to me relied on faith and trust, and I had neither of the 2. You know, I needed divine intervention, and I needed it quick, and I drank that deal down, and for the next 1.5 years, my life would be basically in a hospital bed, in and out of the hospital. And they would do 1 surgery after another. I ate through a feeding tube for a very long time during that whole period. My saliva was coming out of my neck. I finally ended up at UCLA. Like I said, I had 12 major surgeries, and the last 3 or 4 were really bad. All of them were bad. But the last 3 or 4 were really, they really pulverized me. What I have is a large intestine for a stomach. I have a colon for an esophagus. And I got to you guys holding a feeding machine. And you guys didn't reject me or throw me away. And I never want to forget that. You know, when I get lame and I get tired and I don't want to do these things, I got another newcomer calling me to go over to PIP or to go over to Cry Help or go down to the Sally down in Van Nuys, and and I don't feel like jumping through the rules and regulations of the treatment facilities. You know what? I go anyways. Because I remember what I was like, and I remember the fact that I was not rejected when I got here. Nor do I believe in the last 7 years and 2 months have I ever rejected anybody in Alcoholics Anonymous. This is a great program, man. It's the best thing that ever happened to a sick, low-life alcoholic like myself. I'm really absolutely grateful today for what I have. And I don't even know what it is. All I know is I haven't thought about a drink all day. And that's a really groovy thing, man. I came in here just totally engulfed in the obsession to drink and use. And I did a lot of drugs, but really, once all alcohol and drugs ever did was treat the symptom, not the cause. Never treated the cause. Never treated the cause. The 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous has treated the cause. All the other stuff ever did was was superficial. It was like a number 2 eraser for a long time. It just rubbed out the bad feelings for a while until I woke up, and there they were again. And it's a constant cycle. There's a story in the big book called The Vicious Cycle, and I always equate the vicious cycle to that. It's just over and over, and I just keep repeating the same thing, expecting different results. My insanity. And what finally happened, I had divine intervention. A lot of people reaching out. There was a lot of signs, and I just could not adhere to them. And during this period of my life where I'm laying in that hospital bed, things started to happen. And it was my first real, I'd already been introduced to AA before, but I rejected it. I didn't do it. I didn't really care, and I thought you guys were weird, and it didn't, I don't know. It didn't click, because I didn't want it. I had no desire. I had no desire. And desire must come from within. No human power can do it for me. And what I had done was, after they raised my colon, when they did that colon surgery, that was 14 hours. I was left for dead more times than you could imagine. And there wasn't a doctor from here to any, from the West Coast to the East Coast that gave me a cent of a chance of living. But I had a really good doctor out at UCLA, and he kept piecing me back together again. And I remember that look in his face. It's that kind of look like, well, we're kind of putting this guy together, but what's his life really going to be like? And they had no idea. And I used to hear words like, you're not going to be normal. You're not going to be the blah, blah, blah. And, and I believed it. And a guy came and did a 12-step call on me. And I hadn't had that colon pull-up yet. I'm still eating through a J-tube. And he took me to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. My wife bandaged on my neck, and that would hold for about 3 hours. She was like, get him out of the house. She could not stand me anymore. And I'm laying in my living room, and under hospital care with nurses and all this stuff. And I remember I went to my first real meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I called my first real meeting because I laughed. A guy, he was in the meeting, man, he tripped me out. He was like, I love this guy, and he's still sober today. His name's Victor, and Victor was very animated. He was 18 months sober, and he's very loud, and just, it was like a show, and it was really great. And I was very scared and lonely, and he was sitting next to me, and it was a men's stag meeting. I remember it was just full of men. And he starts telling this story, and I used to go to the Salvation Army and get knife fights, and he showed all his scars. And he said, but I didn't have a knife. And I remember I busted out laughing, and that's the first time that I had laughed in 2 years. That was the first time I'd ever been able to produce any kind of like a little light. And I didn't forget that. That was like in January '97. I still had to go through a lot of stuff before I got to you folks in October that year. And what I believe today, which expelled the obsession to drink, I did something absolutely unheard of for me. I was on a bus because that was the condition of my life. Bus tokens and transfers. If you're new and you're on bus tokens and transfers, welcome. You belong to Alcoholics Anonymous, and we love you. And don't be ashamed. I used to read my big book on the bus bench in between stops. And I'd read slow because that's the best I could do. And I had to go over a lot of words because I did not know what the words meant. And I could not pronounce them, but that was okay. It was my motivation. It was my intention was more important than anything else. I wanted to be sober. I wanted what you guys had. Little did I know I already had it, because the day after my sobriety date, my surrender date, I was on that second transfer, and I cried out to God because I heard some guy in a meeting say, God, please help me. I don't want my family to hurt anymore, and I felt it lift. And I've always wondered why, and I look at my recovery, and I kind of, hindsight always has 20/20, and I look back at it, I was purged of self. I've never done that before. I've always asked God to help me with the selfish condition. Always something for me. oh God, if you help me get out of this, I'll do this for you, and then maybe I'll drink later. Obviously, I used to have an idea that my drinking and my drugging was a problem, but not enough to say it was a problem that I needed to get out of my life. Just I needed a temporary reprieve, which is from a state of execution. I just wanted a short reprieve, and the Big Book talks about that a lot. There's more places in the Big Book that talks about the alcoholic who thinks after a certain amount of discipline and sobriety, it qualifies him to drink like other people. It says it everywhere in there. I did that all my life, and I didn't know that somebody else knew about that and wrote it in a book. I did that all my life. I thought, you know what, if I just cool out for a little while. You know, I love how Bob Durrell from Las Vegas calls it, shame yourself into abstinence. But it only lasts for so long. You know, I can only hold that for so long because the pain just gets unbearable. Another friend of mine calls it, you know, being physically sober is like wearing barbed wire underwear. You know, and I know that feeling, sitting in a meeting, just so uncomfortable. And looking around going, when's that dude going to shut up? Because, you know, another friend of mine says, you know, alcoholics are the only people that treat loneliness with isolation. And I want you to shut up so I can go home and be by myself and think. You know, the source of the problem. And thank God, you know, as Dr. Silkworth puts it, you know, the psychic change. It says in there, until the psychic change has occurred, little or nothing else can be done. You know, somehow or another, I had a psychic change on that bus. I transformed my thinking, my behavior, my attitude, my actions, and everything towards AA. And that was enough. Because, well, you know, I always like to say, God led me to Alcoholics Anonymous, and you guys led me right back. And once you guys led me back to God, then God started working on all the other areas of my life. When I put Alcoholics Anonymous first, I'm a better person at work, I'm a better person at home, and I'm a better father, and I show up, and I'm there at all the commitments and the dance recitals and all this stuff. You know, I was at the Sally, you know, working with a new guy, and I had to be back over at my daughter's school. They were doing a little dance thing, and all the classes, each were going to have a number to do. I remember I get there, my wife already had my seat. So I had to go through a row of people, and I knew the lady, I know her son, and she has the red cup. You know alcoholics, they have the silo cups, you know, because you can't see through them, you know, the red and blue cups. And she had that, and it didn't get me, the solo, I think it's the solo cup. And I'm just, you know, wanting to get to my seat, and this thing's just about getting ready to get started. And as I sat in my seat, I'm talking to my wife, all of a sudden, this just strong smell of whiskey. And all of a sudden, I look over at, you know, this lady, you know, I won't mention her name, and, you know, her eyes are all red, her nose is red, and she's having a good time, you know, and what she had was a coffee and Irish cream or whatever was in there, and I just thank God, you know, thank God I don't have to show up drinking. You know, thank God I don't have to be here drinking, because I'll make a mess out of it. I don't know why. I have a lot of good intentions, but, man, bad actions under the influence is the only thing anybody's ever judged me on. They've never judged my good intentions. I'll tell you, you know, this thing's winding out, and what it's like today, and I've kind of give you a brief thing going on. And, you know, I've been able to do some pretty amazing things in recovery. The big thing that I always love to talk about is the fact that I've ran 4 Los Angeles marathons. Now, that's 26.2 miles. I'm in the best shape of my life. I far exceeded anything that those doctors would say. I eat pretty good today. I'll never eat like I used to, but I eat real good. You know, he's restored a lot of things for me, and all I did was ask. I remember a very dear friend of mine, he's an old-timer in recovery. He had recently had a triple bypass, or maybe even one bigger than that. But I remember he was sitting there when we were talking, and he knows my story. He saw me come into that Min-Stag meeting, tore up from the floor up, with all those tubes coming out of my body weighing 130 pounds. So he has a visual, and he knows where I've been. And we started talking, and the story had come up, and I kind of forgot it. When I was 2 weeks into recovery, I remember I'm working, and I go up to Burger King, and I'm there by myself, and you know, I got a little egg sandwich and a cup of coffee, and I started to nibble on this thing, and and that's about all I could get in before it just hurt so much, and I was choking it down. And I remember saying to God, this God that I really don't understand, God, if this is the best it ever gets, thank you. And it was such a release from that bondage of I'll never be normal, I'll never be able to eat again. And I was able to walk through the things that were necessary to walk through, in order to get me to where I'm at today. And I was able to show up to all the doctor appointments. I was able to have the throat dilatations done. I was able to have all these things done a day at a time, a second at a time, and a minute at a time. I was able to do those things because I made that surrender. It was like another surrender. It was another one of those healing moments in recovery, man. If you're new, don't deny yourself the experience. Don't deny yourself a true spiritual experience. One of those ones, man, where you know inside of yourself that it happened and you ain't got to prove it to nobody. You know, that is a really rad feeling to have. You know, and you have to prove it to nobody. You know, that's the gift of recovery. I don't run around anymore like a chicken with its head covered on trying to prove to you. I'd be out there getting loaded and I'm trying to prove to you I'm going to do better. I'm not going to do it. And this time it's going to be different. And I swear, just take me. Me and Ricky, man. Ricky's a good buddy of mine. He came out to see me tonight. We were talking the other night and I told him I was going to be here. And I guess, you know, this is where he started his journey 7 years ago. And we're talking about Norm Alpe because there was a speaker, an old-timer, on Wednesday night at the Windsor Club, and he was talking about Norm Alpe. And, you know, I lost what I was going to say about him. I'll remember after the meeting. But, you know, it's cool. You know, I've gotten to get these, like, you know, get the tapes and stuff like that. You know, and I listen to all the old folks in Alcoholics Anonymous and all their journeys. And, you know, it's been a wonderful thing to actually be able to hear, listen, and participate, and be like, wow, you know, I'm like these people, you know, and I'm no different. You know, I've been different all my life. You know, I've always said, you know, I can't be like everybody else. You know, today, you know, I want to be like everybody else. And I want to be one amongst many. I don't want to stand in front of the crowd. Oh, hey, here's Junior. You know, I don't want to have to prove anything anymore, show you what's this or what's that. Alcoholics Anonymous is probably the only place that I've ever been where the majority. You got to remember, not everybody's well. And the big book says, man, in many places there, convince a man he can get well. It's all about getting well. So if you don't think you're sick, you know, then why would you need to get well? But not everybody's well in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and that's okay. You know, we don't come in here already having it. We come here and it happens, that educational variety of that thing. But it's the only place I've seen where the majority of the people don't really give a damn where you work, how much you make, and what you drive. That's cool. I've never gone around saying, God, what's the diameter of your wallet, dude? Should I be your friend today? You know, I'm friends with people and I don't even know what they do half the time, or where they come from, or what they got. And they're genuine friends. They're the kind of people I can call up in the middle of the night, man, and say, dude, you know, I'm tore up, man, emotionally. And I don't know what's going on, and I got a feeling, and just talk me through it. Those are the kind of friends I have today. You know, I received calls. I remember a guy called me, and it was in his sober living, and the guy next to his room, this is like, you know, midnight, you know, one time, or 12:30 on a work night. I go, hey, what's going on? He goes, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, nothing, you know, got to be up at 5 in the morning, but just nothing. What's going on with you? And he's like, man, they're smoking weed in the next room, and I'm barricaded myself in the room, and I go, all right, dude, let's talk about this, you know. And after about 15, 20 minutes, man, he talked himself out of the anxiety. He talked himself out of the, you know, it freaked him out. And probably half of them wanted to go over there and smoke with him. That was the problem. When I was new in recovery, I wasn't sure, because emotionally it takes a while to stabilize. I wasn't sure when somebody went out, was I so empathetic to the fact that they went out, or was I jealous that they got to use? There was confusion there. And I'm being honest. You know, I didn't know. Today I know. But when I was new in recovery, I wasn't sure. But you know what? I don't want to see anybody go out. The progression of this disease is straight 8 jails, institutions, and death. And I've seen from the best people that happen to. You know, Yale to jail, man, we got everything in between. You know, my time is up. I just want to thank Brandy again for asking me to come out and share with you tonight. It's always an honor and a privilege, man, to be able to participate in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is the best deal in town, man. I hope if you knew, you latch onto it like a drowning man reaches for a life preserver, and don't worry about what other people think. And don't try about impressing anybody, because you know, everybody's an expert in here, and they've already been impressed by everybody else. So, you know, there's really nothing you can do about it. And thank you all for letting me share.